Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas! Welcome back to Lizard of Doom. I am Max. About a month and a half ago, I sent out this special message to my Discord members and to 4 creators that I enjoy on YouTube. Hello Mike, of Flashing Badger Painting. Hello Mel, of Mel's Mini Loft. Hello John, of Flying Raven Studios. Hello Mish Mash, if that is your real name. Hello Lizard of Doom Discord members. I challenge you to a Kitbash. 'Tis a Christmas Kitbash. There shall be 2 colours in the final paint scheme, red and green, very Christmassy. It shall include at least 1 Christmas present. You can use miniatures from any range. It can be any size, as small or as large as you want. 17th of December is the final, and it shall be voted on by my Patreon members. Good luck. Merry Christmas. And happy kitbashing. End transmission. So if you're new to the channel and you've come from one of their channels to this one, all these videos will be linked. Their videos will be down in the description underneath, and I will show you their work at the end. So if you want to see what they've made for this, you can then go and see their videos. If you're new from their videos and you've come here, yeah, subscribe. Give me a little tickle on the like, and let's get into it. Now there were a lot of models I could have used for this Christmas kit bash, but I wanted to get something that I've wanted for a while and not really had an excuse to buy. And I thought it would go perfectly into this theme. The Fusel Major on Warhulk. This is meant to be an ogre. He's a very slim ogre, and this little guy on top is going to be an elf to go with his big Santa buddy in a nice big present. Yeah, this guy really inspired me when I saw him. This little head could be very Santa-y. He's already got a beard involved there, and the big shield was giving me good ideas. So I assembled them in a sub-assembly and pinned them. Whee! Look at them go! This would be for easy painting, and then I would also put them in a cork so I could paint them as a kind of painting handle. These corks, the champagne style cork, if you can get your hands on one, is lovely for painting and is quite nicely ergonomically fitted to your hand. A few kit bash bits I would be doing to this would be laser cut. I will not be using any other kits to kit bash into this, rather than scratch building bits myself. And as regular viewers of the channel know, I do have a laser cutter from some sponsored videos, and I'll be taking full advantage of that. There was a fair bit of time put into measuring, doing test ones, and then making sure the final was perfect before I then fitted them. This is them already and squared up, all the different bits I'll be doing on this miniature. Look at them. Lovely. These little runners would be perfect, turning my shield into a sled for this giant guy. Now I would be holding it, not riding on it, but it was the perfect scale to be a makeshift sled. I can't imagine what happens to the elf in the little carriage on top when he goes for a little ride on this. And the top would be a flap like this, which would be a present opening with the little guy popping out from inside. It does look a little bit toilety at the moment, and I used a little bit of metal in there, which was actually florist's wire. 2mm florist wire was perfect for this hinge, and also for a candy cane weapon. I drilled a 2mm hole through his hand after I took the weapon off, poked it through, and bent it to the right shape. You do have to be careful because it is still quite flexible once it's in the model, obviously, but I'm not going to be battering this around. This is going to be a nice show miniature. This is going to be the best thing I've ever painted. More laser cut pieces to come later, but for now, let's do a little bit of green stuffing. I started with these green stuff sausages around the edges of his coat here. I had also scraped little Sigmar logos off his coat, just to make it nice, smooth and Santa-y. I don't have any silicone tipped tools in my local hobby shop, but I did find this rubber tipped paintbrush that's meant for blending or something, and it works perfectly. So I got this very cheaply from a hobbycraft here in the UK, if you're looking for something to do some green stuff work with. I put a new blade in my scalpel so it had a nice point on it, and then I went into the bottom row of this green stuff and made little cuts downwards, pulling this green stuff downwards to little spiky points, carefully as I could. This would be the first row of fur. I would work all the way along the bottom like this. It's important to start at the bottom when you're green stuffing fur in this manner. Then you come back on the row above, slightly in between those ones, and pull little bits down. You can do this in large strokes with a slightly blunter object to make larger fur, but for this scale I think tiny little nicks with a very sharp tip of a blade is perfect. I think fur gets a bit clunky when it looks big with this method, and it just looks like loops and it looks a bit woolly. This process is then repeated across the miniature again and again, building up layers until you reach the very top of your fur, and then it is complete. And it looks like this. Some lovely fur edges on this tunic ready to be made into a Santa. Now just with that rubber tip tool there, I took the edges of the fur where it got a bit messy and pushed it down so it was a nice neat line along the hem of his clothes. This was just a nice little tidy up to make sure his clothes were looking like they were meant to be this way, like it was sculpted this way in the first place, and not that it was something I had added afterwards. I also cut little rectangles out of green stuff and made little hinges. Unfortunately my camera would not focus on this, it would focus on my hands instead, but I did push them in with this rubber tip tool in the joins there and make sure they were the right shape. I then went back in with my scalpel tip and made little holes to make it look like rivet holes in there, like they were attached to the wood and the hinge itself. I would also put a wood panel on the back. While the green stuff was setting for a couple of days on that main bit of the body, it was time to paint the other bits I could paint that didn't have any green stuff on them. Primed black and then based with dryad bark, I then worked in thin layers of Steel Legion drab around the edges to make sure there was nice light patches in this wood. This would make it look like there was some wear and tear and this was nice and aged. I wanted this to look like the kind of drab paint colours that the new Cities models come in. They do a nice version of the fantasy grimdark really, and it's kind of like a fantasy grunge. It's not really grimdark, it's not that messy, but it is nice and grim and dull. That's what I was going for with this model. Nice, dull, desaturated tones, but in a hopefully interesting way. Once the Steel Legion drab was dry, you can see very thin coats here building up. Almost a glaze, not quite though, into these nice warm bits around the edges and to show off the detail in the middle there and also on the back. Then I made a mix of washes for myself. Agrax Earth Shade and Athonian Camo Shade in a roughly 50-50 mix. That's what I went for with this. Leaves a nice browny green wash. This then makes it look aged and old, especially on wood and metal, rather than just being a dirty brown. I applied this all over very generously. Once that was dry, you can see it blended in that Steel Legion drab very nicely. It now looks like worn wood and you can't really see the bits between where it blends together. Very nice, and you can see that wood grain popping lovely. Next I did a dry brush of Baneblade Brown, say that 10 times fast, over the top, and just picked out all the edges very nicely. Then I based this section in the middle with Rakarth Flesh and did a sepia tone wash over the top, trying to make it look like aged parchment, or some kind of animal skin spread over this area to display the insignia. Once that was done, I then stippled on some more Rakarth Flesh just to bring it back. Now, if you aren't new to the channel, you know that I like using nail art decals as transfers. I use them on anything I can. So this is no different. The Christmassy option I went with was this holly. These were very nice from Nail Art UK and they are perfect. They're not too busy. There's one missing and you can see which one that is now. This little fella, if I can get it to focus, is going to be Santa's insignia. It melted off the backing perfectly, better than GW transfers, and it was the right size exactly for this middle here. I think this has worked fantastically. It's nice, understated, and now to work on the iron, which is going to be done like this. This is an edge highlight of Dawnstone over the black. I did redo the black just to tidy up where I'd got messy. I recolored it with Vallejo model color black, which is perfect. Then did this nice thin edge highlight over all of the areas. And to make it look like ironwork, I did a bit of rust by thinning down some Mornfang brown. This is very thin and I'm just dabbing it on the rivets here and letting it pool around them. The thinner it is, the more subtle it will be. I made sure to catch all of the rivets and then put it in the ironwork where I thought water would collect if this was left outside or in a barn or something. This is meant to be a functional sled as well as a shield. I also used my finger to wipe it off the high points where I didn't want it to be. This creates a very nice effect. You can see it looks very bright here because it's not dry yet, but looking good, looking like iron, no metallics needed. I did use some metallics on these chains at the bottom here, starting with dark silver from Pro Acryl, then going in with the mixed wash I'd made, then going back to the dark silver to highlight, and then finally going up to silver from Pro Acryl to do the very end highlights on these chains. And there we have it. One sled shield ready for Santa. He will be holding it on his arm like this, because he's got an aggressive stance on him like he's going into battle. Imagine getting bashed with those sled runners that are twice as tall as you. That is going to hurt. This guy is going to look nice and tough, and everyone on his naughty list is getting it. Yeah, he also suits him very well to stand on it. I'm not going to do it, but it is funny to see him stood on this. Whee! The next bit for me to work on would be his face, and because this is the bit that people look at the most, people say faces and bases is what people pay the most attention to. I wanted to go balls to the walls on this. I wanted this to be the best paint job I have ever done. Baubles to the warbles. To give Santa the warm glow of a man who drinks a whiskey at every house in the world in one night, I based him with Screamer Pink. This would be a nice mauve colour in the recesses, and then I went over the top with Bugman's Glow, only leaving the deepest areas. This was done with thin layers, building up a nice gradient. You can see in his mouth there, it's still very pink, and around his lips. In the shots in the future, we'll be able to tell on his cheeks that this is a nice gradient, but it is wet for the moment, so you can't really see that until it dries. And you can see it here. Here I am highlighting the next step with Cadian Flesh Tone, very thin layers, almost a glaze. This will build up the nice high points on his cheek, on his eyebrows, and all the furrows up there as well. The nose gets a few little dabs, as well as the top edges of his lips. You have to very carefully think about your strokes when you're using paint this thin, as the final bit of the stroke will leave more pigment, so it's best to work upwards, so your brush leaves the model at the highest point of the highlight. After that, we move to Kislev Flesh just for the highest little points. Again, very thin, almost a glaze, going back and reinforcing them if needed. And then we have the skin. Look at those tones. I also did the eyes off camera because I had to get too close, so I couldn't really do that on camera and be as accurate as I wanted to be. This is my attempt at going as hard as I can with the skin tone. To give him that nice winter wind chill feel, I made his nose and cheeks a little bit rosy using a very thin down bloodletter glaze. You can't get this anymore from GW, but I hear Duncan's variant of it is very good. This adds that little bit of blood flow. Maybe it's from the cold, maybe it's from all the whiskey, but whatever it is, it adds a nice bit of blood flow and really makes this miniature feel alive. Look at him. Gwah, lovely. I based his teeth with some Xandri dust, just to make them look yellow and gnarled, as I don't imagine there's many dentists in the cities of Sigmar. And then highlighted them with Ushabti Bone. This is as high as I would go on these, keeping them nice and dull. I then based his hair with Esh and Grey, leaving little bits of black showing for shadow, then started to highlight with Storm Vermin Fur. I added a little bit of white to Storm Vermin Fur just to raise it a little bit, and then finished off with pure white just for the shine on the edges where the light meets the dark. Exactly how you would highlight non-metallic metal, because it is a shiny surface hair and it needs to be treated as such. Look at him in all his glory. I'm so happy with him. This is absolutely the best thing I've ever painted, is this face. I am so happy with how kind of alive it looks, how deep its colours run. Oh! And now that I've spent a couple of days painting the shield and the face, the green stuff had set, so it was time to move back to the main body. Now I have fully assembled this bit with all the bits bashed into it. The present is complete. The ribbons are made of laser cut craft paper that is thick enough to hold a bit of paint and not sag, but also thin enough to make a knot out of and a bow. It still looks a little bit toilety to me, but the wood grain in there will blend nicely with the rest of it, and hopefully it will look like just a little wooden cabin that they've decorated as a Christmas present, as part of the Kitbash is Christmas presents. The ribbons on the side will match the top, so hopefully it'll look like it should be a present when it's closed. I also made a little bit of mistletoe out of green stuffed balls and laser cut craft paper and pinned it into the hole where there should be a lantern, and by the time I'd manhandled it in, it had got all bedraggled and, to be honest, looks more fitting. After I had caught up this part of the model with the bits I had already painted on the sled earlier, it looked like this. I've also based all the areas that will be red or leather in Rhinox hide brown. I have also painted all these little, not purity seals, no, this is fantasy. These are his naughty lists, and you're on them. I used the little transfers from the Cities of Sigmar set to really give some flavour to these. They're lovely, those little transfers. I definitely recommend using them. Over the bits that were to be red, I built up corn red with a glaze, working to smaller and smaller areas. This is a nice way to build up a good desaturated red, as I'm still going for the realistic, drab look of the Cities of Sigmar models. I've wanted an excuse to paint in that style for a while, and this was the one I have found. Once I'd done that, I glazed smaller areas of Wazdaka red until I was happy with the highlights, and then put some scratchy markings leading into the shadows of corn red. This was to give a nice texture to the fabric, make it look like it was a thick, tough coat he was wearing. My Santa doesn't creep around chimneys in velvet jackets, he bashes down the front door in a red leather jacket and beats the hell out of you with a massive candy cane if you're on the naughty list, so you better be good. This would give a lovely little texture, and then I would back it up by doing a little bit more texturing on the higher areas with Wazdaka red. This looks a little bit harsh and a little bit standout, but I would tie it all in with a corn red glaze over the top of everything at the end. This will add a nice smooth transition and red the brown bits, if you get what I mean. It'll make everything look nice and red and smooth. The bow on the present even got the same texture too. I want it to look like it was the same material. Here is the glaze I was talking about just a second ago, and this ties it all together very nicely. There we have it, Santa's red coat. Lovely, and it's time to tackle the leather. So I mixed a little bit of Mournfang and a little bit of Rhinox hide together, and then added more and more Mournfang to highlight this leather, and glazed it up as I did the coat. And then I realised this bit on the arm I was doing was meant to be red sleeve, so I sorted that out off camera. Then after we had finally reached full Mournfang brown with the mix, I used a little bit of Scrag brown just to highlight the edges of this leather, make it look worn, and then after that, a little bit of Tau light ochre. This makes it look like a nice worn in old brown leather. A lovely little recipe, I think it works very nicely. The next bit to paint on this miniature would be the candy cane weapon. I'm going to paint this in the same way I paint hazard stripes on cables, obviously not the same colours. It's going to be Rakarth flesh and corn red to keep it in tone with the rest of the model, but the technique will be the same. I start by doing diagonal stripes on one side of the pole. This is the same for if you're doing hazard cables on anything, obviously. Then I try and join one side of the stripe up with the bottom of the next stripe up. This is the best way I've found to do this. Afterwards I gave it a wash of my magic mix that I made earlier. But I find this method of cabling and striping is the most consistent way. You always go back and forward a bit between the two colours to neaten up. And I just put a highlight on the top of straight Rakarth flesh and a bit of Wazdaka red to make a nice shiny line across the top of his candy cane here. Perfect little grungy stick to bash people with. After that I based the fur with Xandri dust, gave that a bit of my magic wash as well, and then went up through the bone colours, Ushabti bone and Screamer's skull until I reached this. A lovely dirty fur colour for Santa's lovely war robe. Nice. And with that, we were pretty much getting there. This thing was nearly done. Just the metallics to do, and they were easy enough. Dark silver from Pro Acryl as a base for all of this armour on him. Then my magic wash, the Agrax and Camo mix. Then edge highlighted up with dark silver, and then a little bit of Pro Acryl silver for the very high edges and scratches. A final touch of running some thinned Mournfang brown through the edges so it would match the rust patterns on the ironwork on things like the basket at the top that you can see in shot here and the shield. Then just to assemble him, I put him all together and he was looking pretty done. But can you see something that's missing? Something that should go in that little box at the top there. Aha. I haven't done much green on this project yet, so that it was present, tick, red, tick, but green. I need something green to go in this box. Could it be Buddy the Elf, if he was from a war-torn fantasy city? Yes, it could be. This was my Christmassy surprise at the end. A green little elf to pop out of the present and shoot you right in the schnoz. There he is, ready to give someone a Christmas they'll never forget. I am ecstatic with this model. I truly think this is the best thing I have ever painted. Whether it wins or not, I don't really care. I've enjoyed it. I made this scenic little base from foam. I may do a full video on making little bases like this. It was very easy and very enjoyable, but I just didn't have time to put it in the video. So here it is, and let's have a look at the final thing. As I said, whether I win or not, I do not care. Obviously, it would be nice to win, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this. This has kind of been a painting project for me. I've pushed myself harder on this and spent more time on this than anything I've painted this year, and I've painted a lot of things this year on the channel. This is something I am incredibly proud of, and it is the last thing I'll paint in 2023 on the channel. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I hope you are safe and well and warm in your homes. Thank you for being with me this year as I started this journey on YouTube, and maybe subscribe if you're new to the channel for an exciting 2024. Let's have a little look at how this competition has turned out. So first, let us tackle the results of our Discord competition. So everyone who entered, thank you very much for entering. These will be the top 3. Everyone else will be posted in the Discord the day after these go live. So all entries will be seen by everyone there. And the winner, drumroll please, is Stembo for this lovely Santa Orc. Lovely lighting, lovely composition, lovely paint job. The thing I picked out the most about this was the goggles. I know it might only be a small bit, but they are very good, and I actually asked them how they did this, and they put little drops of UV resin on the goggle and cured them. So if you're going for that effect, this is fantastic. Good job, Stembo. Congratulations on first place. You deserve it. And second is Plops of Corn. Plops of Corn has made this lovely Gene Stealer delivering this present at speed. I'd be delivering that present at speed too. It's obviously going to ruin someone in the Imperium's Christmas, but it is a very nice model. Great job. And finally, third is X1. Exone? I didn't ask how you pronounce this, and I should have. X1, I'm going to say. They have put this together from scratch. This was a scratch build. This Futurama Robot Santa is amazing. I'm a big Futurama fan. Little Hypno Toad down at the bottom there is a great touch. This was fantastic, and they posted all of their work in the work in progress on the Discord as they were going. So it was lovely to see this progress as it was getting there. Right, Discord competition done. It is now down to the Christmas Creator Clash of 2023. Go and check out their channel. Everyone on this bit, all of their work for this stuff is on their channels. Links down below. So our first entry from Mike from Flashing Badger is this lovely orc popping out of a present and a very surprised Space Marine falling back. The drooliness of the squig is great, and the surprise on the Space Marine is apparent even though he's wearing a helmet. Ticks all the boxes. Green orc, red marine, Christmas present. Perfect. Our next entry is this insane scene from Mish Mash. I know they based some of the stuff in this on Killing Floor, which if you enjoy that video game, you may be able to spot a few bits like the gingerbread man and the snowman from that. This is an insane scene. There's so much work gone into this. Space Marine Santa, evil elves, some eldritch horror pulling a man into a wall. Fantastic. Next is John from Flying Raven Studios. Another Christmassy orc, but this one is delivering the present rather than being the present. He's not only delivering a squig, he's hung up a little stocking full of stick bombs there, and also it appears in his sack there is an extra giant squig, just in case. Lovely work there, John. And the final one is from Mel of Mel's Mini Loft, and she has delivered this lovely version of the lion I'm going to call the polar bear. It is glorious. Look at him. And even his sword holder is now a stocking. The other little helper has bought the Christmas tree. Perfect. Everything is there. Thank you all for entering. As I said, all of their work's available to see on their channels down below now. And we'll get on to the results of the competition. There are 2 winners. There is 1 person in second place, and there is 2 people in third. So we are all in the top 3, which is amazing. Drum roll, please. Mel of Mel's Mini Loft and Mike from Flashing Badger Painting take the top spot. They have won fantastic entries. Thank you guys very much. And in second place, Shaboy, me. I have come second, like always. Ask your mum. And I'm happy with that. Being mid-ranked in amongst these other 4 creators, which I do enjoy and find some of their videos very useful, is good. I'm very happy with that. And third, of course, we have Mish Mash and John from Flying Raven Studios. Thank you boys for entering. It's been a pleasure to work with you all. This has been a fantastic video to make, and you've actually all been very lovely and easy to organise, which has been great in getting over this hurdle, because this is my first collab and it was with 4 people at the same time. So thank you guys for working on this with me. Remember to subscribe if you're new here. I was trying to hit 10k by the end of the year, but we've smashed that. So let's see how far we can go. Tickle my like button. Oh yes, please, for Christmas. And we will see you next time. I love you. Too much. I like you as a friend. Merry Christmas. Remember, it's not a pile of shame. It's a pile of future fun. See you next time, kids.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.